Lucas Reed stood in the elevator, hands trembling, holding a folder that contained his son's future. And 15 minutes from now, he'd be thrown out into the rain with nothing. The woman across the glass desk wouldn't even look up from her screen. She had the power to save his life or destroy it, and she didn't know his name. Outside, his 6-year-old son sat in a car with an inhaler that was nearly empty, parked in front of an apartment they'd lose in 4 days. This wasn't just an interview. This was the last door before the street. If you're watching from your city, New York, Lagos, Mumbai, anywhere, drop a comment and hit like. I want to see how far this story travels. The waiting room smelled like leather and glass cleaner. Lucas sat with his back straight, the folder balanced on his knees, watching the clock above the receptionist's desk tick past 2:47 p.m. His shirt was wrinkled despite his best efforts with a damp towel that morning. The tie, borrowed from a neighbor, didn't match, but it was the only one he had. He'd practiced his answers in the mirror for 3 nights. Why do you want to work here? What makes you qualified? The truth, because my son needs medicine and we're about to be homeless, wasn't an option. So he'd rehearsed the corporate version. Innovation, vision, long-term growth. But now, sitting here with polished executives walking past without a glance, the words felt hollow. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, the neighbor watching Jamie. He used the inhaler twice already. Running low. Lucas closed his eyes. The prescription refill cost $90. He had $43 in his account. Mr. Reed? He looked up. A woman in a charcoal suit stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, expression neutral. Yes. He stood quickly, smoothing his shirt. This way. The hallway stretched longer than it looked. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the city below, cars like ants, people like specks. Lucas had never been this high up in a building before. The elevator ride alone had made his stomach flip. 34 floors. He'd counted everyone, watching the numbers climb while his pulse hammered in his ears. They passed offices where people typed without looking up, conference rooms where presentations played on screens the size of movie theaters. Everything here was clean, sharp, expensive. Lucas caught his reflection in the glass and saw a man who didn't belong. They stopped at a conference room. Inside, 3 people sat at a long table. 2 men in dark suits, 1 woman with silver hair pulled back tight. At the head of the table sat someone younger, mid-30s maybe, with sharp eyes and an air of controlled impatience. Arya Voss, CEO. He'd seen her face on the website, 29 years old. Built the company from seed funding to a $1 billion valuation in 6 years. The kind of person who'd never missed a meal or wondered how to pay for heat. Sit, one of the men said without introduction. Lucas sat. The chair was expensive, the kind that adjusted with a lever he didn't touch. He placed the folder on the table carefully, aware of how cheap it looked. Dollar store plastic, corners already cracking. The silver-haired woman slid a paper across the table. Your resume. Yes. There's a gap, she said flatly. 3 years. What were you doing? Lucas swallowed. He'd known this question would come. I was raising my son. His mother passed away, and he has medical needs that required full-time care. The woman's expression didn't change. So you've been out of the industry? I've been studying, Lucas said. At night, keeping up with developments, following new frameworks. Studying isn't the same as working, one of the men interrupted. His nameplate read Richard Cross, VP of Operations. This company operates at the cutting edge. We can't afford to train someone who's been sitting on the sidelines. Lucas felt his jaw tighten. I haven't been sitting anywhere. But you haven't been working, Cross repeated, as if explaining to a child. Which means your skills are outdated. The industry moved on without you. That's not... What's this? Arya Voss spoke for the first time, her voice quiet but cutting through the room. She was looking at the folder Lucas had placed on the table. My portfolio, Lucas said quickly. Examples of systems I've designed. Theoretical models mostly, but theoretical. The silver-haired woman, Dr. Helen Marks, according to her nameplate, said it like a curse. We don't deal in theory here, Mr. Reed. We deal in products, revenue, market share. Lucas pushed the folder toward Arya anyway. I know I don't have recent professional experience, but I've been working on something. A distributed ledger protocol that solves latency without sacrificing security. It's different from what's out there. Arya opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the first page, a schematic Lucas had drawn by hand because he couldn't afford design software. The lines weren't perfectly straight. The annotations were in pencil. Beneath it, a second page, his son's crayon drawing of a spaceship, which Lucas had accidentally printed on the back of his notes. Her mouth twitched, but she didn't smile. "This is cute," she said, tapping the crayon drawing. "But we're not hiring someone to draw spaceships." The room chuckled. Cross smirked. Even Dr. Marks allowed herself a thin smile. Lucas felt heat rise in his chest. "That was a mistake," he said. "I didn't mean—" "We're done here." Dr. Marks stood. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Reed." Lucas stared at her. "You didn't even look at the design." "We don't need to," Cross said. "We have a team of engineers with PhDs and decades of experience. What could you possibly offer that they can't?" "A solution," Lucas said quietly. "Excuse me?" "A solution," Lucas repeated, louder now, "to the exact problem your press release mentioned last week. The one where your cloud system crashed during the investor demo and cost you $250 million in stock value." The room went silent. Arya leaned back in her chair, studying him. "You read our press release?" "I read everything. Your system has a bottleneck in the consensus algorithm. You're using a modified proof-of-stake model, but it's not scaling because the validator selection is centralized. Every time traffic spikes, the validators choke. That's why your demo crashed. Too many transactions, not enough processing capacity at the validation layer." Dr. Mark's face hardened. "That's proprietary information. It's public if you know where to look," Lucas said. "Your GitHub commits are visible. So are your error logs if someone checks the right forms. Your engineers have been complaining about the architecture for months. They just don't say it in official channels." Cross leaned forward. "You've been stalking our employees?" "I've been doing research," Lucas shot back, "which is what you're supposed to do before an interview. I wanted to understand the problem you're facing so I could show you I'm capable of solving it." Arya's eyes narrowed. "And you think you've solved it?" "I know I have." "How?" Lucas hesitated. He'd planned to explain this carefully, methodically, but the clock was ticking, and he could feel the room already deciding he was a waste of time. "Decentralized validator rotation," he said. "Randomized, weighted by stake and uptime, but with a fallback quorum that activates under high load. It distributes the bottleneck across the network instead of concentrating it in a single point." Cross laughed. "That's not new. We've tried randomized selection. It doesn't work at scale. Not like this," Lucas said. "Your version still has a single point of failure in the selection process. Mine doesn't. It's layered. If the primary quorum fails, the secondary activates without resetting the chain. And if the secondary fails, there's a tertiary fallback that reconstructs consensus from the most recent valid state." "That would require redundant memory across every node," Dr. Mark said. "The overhead would kill performance." "Not if you compress the state snapshots," Lucas countered. "I'm using differential encoding. You only store what's changed since the last consensus round. It cuts memory usage by 70%. Arya picked up the schematic again. This time, she looked at it longer. "This is hand-drawn," she said. "I don't have the software." "And you tested it how?" "Simulations. On my laptop. I know it's not a full deployment, but the math works. I can show you the results." "We don't have time for this," Dr. Marks interrupted. "Ms. Voss, we have the board meeting in 20 minutes. We need to finalize the engineering report." Arya didn't respond. She was still looking at the paper, her eyes tracing the lines Lucas had drawn at 2 a.m. while Jamie slept in the next room. Finally, she closed the folder and slid it back across the table. "Thank you, Mr. Reed," she said. "We'll be in touch." Lucas felt the air leave the room. He stood slowly, taking the folder, his hands numb. "That's it? That's it." He wanted to argue, to shout, to demand they actually listen. But he knew how this worked. People like him didn't get second chances. People like him got polite rejections and empty promises. He walked out without another word. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. Lucas stood alone, watching the numbers descend. 34, 33, 32. Each floor a reminder of how far he'd climbed just to fall back down. His phone buzzed again. Mrs. Chen. Is the interview over? Jamie's asking when you'll be back. Lucas typed, on my way. He didn't add that he'd failed, that there wouldn't be a job, that in 4 days they'd be packing what little they owned into garbage bags because the eviction was final and there was nowhere else to go. The elevator doors opened. The lobby stretched before him, marble floors, gold fixtures, a security desk where a guard barely glanced up. Lucas walked past all of it, through the revolving door, and into the street. The rain started before he reached the sidewalk. Lucas stood under the building's awning, watching water hammer the pavement. His car was parked 2 blocks away. He couldn't afford the garage. $15 an hour, and he'd already been here 90 minutes. He didn't have an umbrella. He thought about his son, about the inhaler, about the eviction notice taped to their door, the edges already curling from the moisture in their apartment because the landlord refused to fix the ventilation. Then he started walking. The rain soaked through his shirt in seconds. The folder tucked under his arm grew damp despite his efforts to shield it. His shoes, the only pair he owned that weren't falling apart, squelched with every step. By the time he reached the car, he was drenched. He opened the back door and saw Jamie asleep in his booster seat, mouth slightly open, the inhaler resting on his lap. Mrs. Chen had left a note on the dashboard. He was good. See you tomorrow. There wouldn't be a tomorrow. Not if Lucas couldn't find another job by the end of the week. He stood there in the rain, gripping the doorframe, trying to breathe. He'd failed. Again. Inside the tower, Arya Voss sat alone in the conference room, staring at the table. The board meeting had been a disaster. The VP of engineering, a man named Gerald Tompkins, who'd been with the company since the beginning, had presented 3 potential fixes for the cloud system. All of them were inadequate, expensive, slow, incremental patches that wouldn't solve the underlying problem. The board had approved them anyway because they didn't have a better option. Arya had spent the last 6 months watching her company's reputation crumble because of a problem no one could solve. Investors were losing confidence, clients were threatening to leave, competitors were circling like sharks. And then some guy with a wrinkled shirt and a hand-drawn schematic had walked in and claimed he'd already solved it. She didn't believe him, except her eyes drifted to the folder he'd left behind. No, not left. She'd given it back, but there was a paper on the floor. Arya stood and walked over. It must have slipped out when he grabbed the folder. She picked it up. On one side, the crayon spaceship signed Jamie in uneven letters. A stick figure stood beside the ship, holding what might have been a flag or maybe just a tall flower. On the other side, a technical diagram, dense with annotations. Validator nodes arranged in concentric circles, quorum trees branching from a central root, latency calculations scribbled in the margins. And in the corner, written in pencil, fallback redundancy, test under 10,000 TPS load. If primary fails, route to secondary within 50 milliseconds. No resets. Arya stared at it. She'd been building software systems since she was 16. She knew what good architecture looked like. And this crude hand-drawn diagram, had something her entire engineering team's polished presentations didn't. Elegance. She grabbed her phone and called her assistant. Where's the candidate from the 3 p.m. interview? Mr. Reed, he left about 5 minutes ago. Find him. Ms. Voss, the board meeting. Find him, Arya repeated. Now. She hung up and ran. Ntikab. Lucas was halfway down the block when he heard someone shouting. Mr. Reed. He turned. A woman was running toward him through the rain. No coat, no umbrella, just the charcoal suit already soaked. Arya Voss. She stopped in front of him, breathing hard, holding the paper. You dropped this, she said. Lucas looked at it. That's my son's drawing. I know. She flipped it over. This is yours. He didn't answer. Come back inside, Arya said. Why? Because I want to test it. Lucas blinked water out of his eyes. You said you'd be in touch. I lied. She stepped closer, rain streaming down her face. I need to know if this works. Right now. Not next week. Not after we deliberate. Now. Your team already decided I wasn't worth their time. My team is wrong. Arya's voice was hard. I've spent 6 months listening to people with degrees and credentials tell me they'll fix this problem eventually. 3-month timelines. 6-month timelines. incremental improvements that don't actually improve anything. And you walked in and told me you already did it. So either you're lying, or you're the only person in this building who actually knows what they're doing. Lucas stared at her. And if I'm lying, then I wasted 10 minutes. She held out the paper. But if you're not, you just saved my company. For a long moment, Lucas didn't move. He thought about Jamie, about the inhaler, about the apartment and the eviction, and the endless spiral of rejection and failure. Then he glanced back at his car. Jamie was still asleep, the blanket pulled up to his chin. I need 5 minutes, Lucas said. You have 3. Lucas opened the car door as quietly as he could. Jamie stirred but didn't wake. He tucked the blanket tighter around him, checked that the inhaler was in reach, and cracked the window for air. Then he locked the doors and followed Arya back into the tower. Check. The elevator ride was silent. Arya didn't look at him. Her hair was plastered to her neck, her suit dripping onto the polished floor. She didn't seem to care. Water pooled around her shoes, but she stood perfectly still, eyes fixed on the numbers climbing. Why are you doing this? Lucas asked. Because I'm desperate, she said simply. And desperate people take risks. You don't look desperate. She turned to him. I'm 29 years old and I built $1 billion company. Do you know what happens if it fails? Everyone who said I was too young, too inexperienced, too lucky, they all get to say they were right. I don't get a second chance. This is it. Lucas understood that. Yeah. The doors opened. She led him down a different hallway, past offices with dim lights and empty desks. The building felt different now, less polished, more lived in. Coffee cups sat forgotten on desks. Whiteboards were covered in half-erased equations. They reached a secured door. She swiped her badge. Inside was a lab, servers humming, monitors glowing. A man in a hoodie looked up from a keyboard, startled. Miss Voss? Clear a workstation, Arya said. We're running a test. A test of what? Something new. She turned to Lucas. You said you have simulations. Show me. Lucas set his laptop on the desk, 5 years old, scratched, held together with electrical tape. The man in the hoodie glanced at it and smirked. Is that thing even going to boot? He muttered. It'll boot, Lucas said quietly. He opened the lid. The screen flickered to life, took a moment to load. The man, his badge said Dev Prasad, systems engineer, crossed his arms and watched like he was waiting for a punchline. Lucas navigated to a folder buried in his desktop, opened a script, and turned the laptop toward Arya. This is the model, he said. It's crude, but it works. If you give me access to your test environment, I can adapt it to your infrastructure. Arya looked at the screen. Lines of code, diagrams, variables he'd named things like failsafe_2 and Jimmy_node because he'd been writing it at 3 a.m. while his son coughed in the next room. How long? She asked. To adapt it? 30 minutes. Maybe less if your environment is documented. You have 20. Lucas worked in silence. His fingers moved across the keyboard faster than they had in years. Muscle memory took over, the kind that comes from 1,000 late nights, 1,000 problems solved when no one was watching. Arya stood behind him, watching. Dev hovered nearby, arms crossed, skeptical but curious. This is insane, Dev muttered. We don't even know who this guy is. I know exactly who he is, Arya said. He's someone who spent 3 years solving a problem while the rest of us were getting paid to fail. Dev shut up. Lucas pulled up Arya's test environment, a sandbox mirror of the production system. He studied the architecture, the data flows, the points of failure. It was worse than he'd thought. The consensus algorithm was a patchwork of fixes layered on top of fixes, each one trying to solve the problem the previous fix had created. No wonder it kept crashing. He started rebuilding it from the inside out. What are you doing? Dev asked. Replacing your validator selection protocol. That'll break everything. It's already broken, Lucas said. I'm just making it obvious. At 18 minutes, Lucas leaned back. Done, he said. Arya stepped closer. Run it. Lucas hesitated. If this crashes your system, it's a test environment, Arya said. Run it. He pressed enter. The screen filled with data. Nodes activating, validators rotating, traffic spiking, 10,000 transactions per second, then 15,000, then 20,000. The system held. Dev's eyes widened. No way! The load hit 25,000 TPS. The validators cycled seamlessly, no bottleneck, no lag. The fallback quorum activated once when the load spiked to 28,000, then handed control back to the primary when traffic normalized. Smooth, clean, stable. Arya exhaled slowly. Pull up the consensus logs, she said. Dev did. The quorum was stable. Latency averaged 42 milliseconds. Error rate was 0.03%, well within acceptable parameters. This shouldn't work, Dev said. The math is fine, Lucas interrupted. You've just been using the wrong model. Arya turned to him. Her expression was unreadable. Shut it down, she said. Lucas's stomach dropped. What? Shut it down. We're done testing. He closed the script. The monitors went dark. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Arya turned to Dev. Call Gerald. Tell him to cancel his fix proposal. We're implementing this instead. Dev stared. You're serious? Do I look like I'm joking? Dev grabbed his phone and walked out, already dialing. Arya looked at Lucas. You're hired. Lucas blinked. What? You're hired. Full-time. Senior engineer. You start Monday. Lucas felt his throat tighten. I don't even know what you pay. Enough to cover your son's medical bills, Arya said. And rent. And whatever else you need. Base salary is $140. Plus equity. Plus benefits that'll cover Jamie's asthma treatment fully. Lucas stared at her. How do you... I read between the lines, Arya said. You're not here because you love coding. You're here because you're out of options. So let me be clear. I don't care about your resume. I don't care about your gap. I don't care that you used your son's drawing paper for notes. I care about results. And you just gave me the first real result I've seen in 6 months. Lucas didn't know what to say. There's one condition, Arya added. What? You don't work for Gerald. You work for me. Directly. I want you leading the protocol team. Full authority. You pick your engineers, you set the timeline, you build it the way it needs to be built. Leading? Lucas's voice cracked. I've never managed anyone. You've been managing yourself for 3 years, Arya said. That's more than most of my staff can say. They've been coasting on structure and hierarchy. You've been building something real with nothing but a broken laptop and determination. That's the kind of person I need. She held out her hand. Lucas looked at it. Then slowly he shook it. Thank you, he whispered. Arya's grip was firm. Don't thank me yet. This company's a mess. If you can't fix it, we both lose. I'll fix it. Good. She released his hand. Now go home. Your son's waiting. Lucas walked back to the car in a daze. The rain had stopped. The streets were slick, reflecting streetlights and neon signs. Everything looked different now, sharper, brighter, like the city had been repainted while he wasn't looking. He opened the door and saw Jamie awake now, rubbing his eyes. Dad? Hey, buddy. Lucas climbed into the driver's seat, hands still shaking. Did you get the job? Lucas looked at his son in the rearview mirror. 6 years old, too thin, too pale, but smiling. Yeah, Lucas said. I got the job. Jamie grinned. Does that mean we can stay in our apartment? Lucas felt something break inside his chest. Relief, maybe, or hope, or just the weight of 3 years finally lifting. Yeah, he said. We can stay. Jamie pumped his fist. Yes, can we get pizza? Lucas laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. Yeah, we can get pizza. He started the car and pulled into traffic, the city lights blurring past. Jamie chattered in the back seat about pizza toppings, about a game he wanted to play, about nothing and everything. And for the first time in 3 years, Lucas Reed let himself believe things might actually be okay. Monday morning arrived too fast. Lucas stood outside the tower at 7:30, holding 2 coffees he'd bought from a cart on the corner. One for him, one because he didn't know if that's what people did on their first day. The building looked different in daylight, glass and steel catching the sun, people streaming through the revolving doors like they belonged there. He'd dropped Jamie at school 20 minutes early, watched him run toward the playground with the new inhaler tucked in his backpack. The prescription had cost nothing. Arya's benefits coordinator had called Saturday afternoon, walked him through the insurance activation, sent him a temporary card he could use immediately. Jamie had hugged him before running off. "You look fancy, Dad." Lucas didn't feel fancy. He felt like an imposter in a thrift store blazer. He took a breath and walked inside. The security guard glanced at his temporary badge. 34th floor. Elevators on the right. Lucas nodded and kept moving. The elevator was crowded. People in suits, people in tech casual, everyone looking at phones or staring at nothing. Nobody looked at him. He clutched both coffees and watched the numbers climb. 34. The doors opened onto chaos. People rushing between cubicles, voices overlapping, phones ringing. A woman nearly collided with him, didn't apologize, just swerved and kept going. Lucas stepped out carefully, looking for anything that resembled direction. "Lucas Reed?" He turned. Dev stood near a hallway, holding a tablet. "You're early." "I wasn't sure how long it would take to get here." "Most people show up late their first day." Dev gestured. "Come on, I'll show you your office." Office. Lucas followed him down a corridor lined with glass-walled rooms. Most were occupied. People on calls, people hunched over laptops, people arguing in front of whiteboards. Dev stopped at a door near the end. "This one's yours." Lucas stared. The room was small, but real. A desk, a chair, a window overlooking the city. His name was already printed on a placard outside, Lucas Reed, Protocol Lead. "Is this a mistake?" Lucas asked. "Nope. Arya doesn't make mistakes." Dev leaned against the door frame. "Word of advice? Don't try to be friends with everyone. Half the engineering team is pissed you got this job." "Why?" "Because they've been here for years and you walked in off the street." Dev shrugged. "They'll get over it or they won't. Either way, you've got work to do." Lucas set the coffees down on the desk. "What's first?" "Meeting in 10 minutes. Conference room B. Arya wants you to present the protocol update to the engineering leads." Lucas felt his stomach drop. "Present?" "Yeah, explain how it works so they can start implementation." Dev checked his tablet. "She already sent out the agenda. You're the main item." "I didn't prepare anything." Dev looked at him. "You built the thing. Just tell them how it works." "I don't have slides. I don't have—" "Then draw it on the whiteboard like you did Friday." Dev pushed off the doorframe. "You're the expert now. Act like it." He walked away before Lucas could respond. Lucas stood alone in his office, staring at the desk, the chair, the window. His laptop sat in his bag, the same taped-together machine he'd used for 3 years. He pulled it out, set it down, and stared at the blank screen. 10 minutes. He opened a document and started typing notes. Not a presentation, just thoughts, key points, the architecture, the fallback structure, the compression algorithm, words to keep himself from freezing when 20 engineers stared at him like he didn't belong. Because he didn't. Not yet. Bofakuk. Conference room B was already full when Lucas arrived. He counted 14 people. Some he recognized from Friday: Dr. Marks, Richard Cross, Gerald Tompkins. Others were new faces, all watching him with varying degrees of skepticism. Arya sat at the head of the table. She nodded when he entered. "Lucas, good. We're ready when you are." Lucas set his laptop down, hands unsteady. "I don't have slides." "That's fine," Arya said. "Just walk us through it." He turned to the whiteboard. Someone had left a marker. He picked it up, uncapped it, and drew a circle. "This is a validator node," he said. The room was silent. He drew more circles, connecting them with lines. Current architecture uses a centralized selector to assign validation tasks. When traffic spikes, the selector becomes a bottleneck. Validators queue up waiting for assignments, and the whole system slows down. He drew an X through the center. We eliminate the selector. Validators self-select based on stake weight and uptime, using a randomized hash function tied to the previous block. It's decentralized, so there's no single point of failure. Dr. Marks raised a hand. "That's proof of stake with extra steps. We've already tried variations of this." "Not like this," Lucas said. He drew a second layer beneath the first. If the primary quorum fails, network partition, DDoS, attack, whatever, The secondary quorum activates automatically. It doesn't wait for manual intervention. It reconstructs the consensus state from the last valid snapshot and keeps running. Gerald leaned forward. How do you prevent the secondary from diverging from the primary? Differential sync, Lucas said. He wrote the formula on the board. Every node maintains a compressed state delta. When the secondary activates, it pulls the most recent deltas from the surviving nodes and rebuilds consensus. Once the primary comes back online, it compares states, resolves conflicts using a deterministic merge protocol, and hands control back. What if both quorums fail? Someone asked. Lucas drew a third layer. Tertiary fallback. It's read-only, can't process new transactions, but it preserves the ledger state until the network recovers. No data loss. No rollbacks. The room murmured. People leaning in, scribbling notes, exchanging glances. Richard Cross cleared his throat. This is interesting in theory, but implementation is another story. How long until we can deploy this in production? Lucas looked at Arya. She nodded. 4 weeks, Lucas said. The room erupted. 4 weeks? Gerald's voice rose. That's insane. Testing alone takes longer than that. We can run parallel tests, Lucas said. Keep the current system live while we validate the new protocol in Sandbox. Once it's stable, we migrate. And if it's not stable, Dr. Marks asked, then we don't migrate. Lucas capped the marker. But it will be. I've already tested it under loads higher than anything you've seen in production. It works. Cross shook his head. You tested it on a laptop. That's not the same as a distributed network with real users and real money on the line. I know, Lucas said. That's why I need access to your infrastructure, your data, your team. He looked around the room. I can't do this alone. Arya stood. You won't be alone. Gerald, I want your senior engineers reassigned to Lucas's team. Dr. Marks, you'll provide oversight on the cryptographic protocols. Richard, logistics and deployment planning. Gerald's face went red. You're putting him in charge of my engineers? I'm putting him in charge of the protocol, Arya said calmly. Your engineers will still report to you on everything else. But on this project, Lucas has final authority. This is a mistake, Gerald said. He's been here 3 days, and in those 3 days, he solved a problem you've been failing to solve for 6 months. Arya's voice hardened. If you have an issue with my decision, we can discuss it in private. But this meeting is about implementation, not hierarchy. Are we clear? Gerald stared at her. Then he stood, grabbed his notebook, and walked out. The room went quiet. Arya didn't flinch. Anyone else have concerns? Nobody spoke. Good, Arya said. Lucas, you have your team. I want a project plan by end of week. Budget approval is already in place. Whatever you need, you ask for it. She looked at Dr. Marks. Helen, I expect your full cooperation. Dr. Marks nodded stiffly. Meeting adjourned, Arya said. People filed out. Lucas stood by the whiteboard, marker still in hand, feeling like he'd just survived something. Dev walked past and clapped him on the shoulder. Welcome to the big leagues. By noon, Lucas had 12 engineers sitting in his office. They'd pulled in chairs from other rooms, squeezed into the small space, and waited for him to tell them what to do. Most looked curious. A few looked annoyed. Lucas sat on the edge of his desk, laptop open beside him. I know this is awkward, he said. You don't know me. I don't know you. Gerald's pissed, and half of you probably think Arya made a terrible decision. A couple people smirked. Maybe she did, Lucas continued. But we're here now, so let's figure it out. I need to understand what you've already built. What works, what doesn't, where the pain points are. And I need you to tell me the truth, not the version you'd tell a VP in a status meeting. A woman near the back raised her hand. I'm Sarah Chen. I've been lead on the consensus module for 2 years. The pain point is that we've been patching the same broken architecture instead of rebuilding it. Every fix creates 2 new problems. Why haven't you rebuilt it? Lucas asked. Because Gerald won't approve a full rewrite. Too risky, too expensive, too disruptive to the product roadmap. Lucas looked at her. What if I told you we're doing a full rewrite? Sarah blinked. Seriously? Seriously. We have 4 weeks. That's not enough time to half fix this. We need to build it right. A man in a hoodie spoke up. I'm Raj. I handle load testing. 4 weeks isn't realistic, not for something this complex. It's realistic if we focus, Lucas said. No feature creep, no scope expansion. We build the core protocol, test it until it breaks, fix it, and test it again. Everything else is noise. What about documentation? Someone asked. We document as we go. Comments in the code, architecture diagrams updated daily. If something isn't clear, you ask immediately. No assumptions. What about QA? Sarah asked. We are QA, Lucas said. Everyone writes tests for their own code, peer review before anything merges. If it's not tested, it doesn't ship. Raj frowned. That's going to slow us down. No, Lucas said. It's going to keep us from shipping broken code and having to redo it later. Slow now means fast later. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Sarah nodded. Okay, I'm in. Others murmured agreement. Lucas exhaled. Good. Let's start with what we've got. Sarah, walk me through the current consensus module. Raj, I want your load testing data. Everyone else, I need to see your code bases. By end of day, I want a clear picture of where we are. They got to work. Adjemt. Lucas didn't leave the building until 9 that night. His office had become a war room. Whiteboards covered in diagrams, laptops balanced on every surface, coffee cups everywhere. The engineering team had cycled through in shifts, some going home, others staying late, everyone feeding him information. He'd learned more about the company's infrastructure in 8 hours than he'd learned in 3 years of reading forms. The system was worse than he'd thought. Not broken, exactly, but fragile, held together by duct tape and prayers. The kind of thing that worked fine until it didn't, and then it collapsed spectacularly. Dev poked his head in around 9:15. You're still here, Lucas rubbed his eyes, trying to finish the architecture review. It'll still be there tomorrow. I know, Lucas gestured at the whiteboard. There's so much to fix. Yeah, Dev said. That's why Arya hired you. Lucas looked at him. You think I can actually do this? Dev leaned against the doorframe. Honestly, I don't know. But I've worked here for 4 years and I've never seen Arya take a risk like this. She doesn't gamble, so if she thinks you can do it, you probably can. Or we both crash and burn. Maybe, Dev shrugged. But at least it'll be interesting. Lucas laughed despite himself. That's one way to look at it. Dev left. Lucas packed up his laptop, turned off the lights, and headed for the elevator. The building was nearly empty. A few people in distant offices, cleaning crew making rounds, but mostly silence. Lucas rode down alone, watching the city lights through the glass walls. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Jamie's asleep. He asked if you're coming home soon. Lucas typed, on my way now. He stepped out into the cool night air and walked to his car. The apartment was dark when he got home. Lucas unlocked the door quietly and stepped inside. Mrs. Chen was dozing on the couch, TV playing at low volume. She woke when he entered. Oh, Lucas, I didn't hear you. Sorry I'm late, he said. I lost track of time. It's fine. Jamie was good. He did his homework, ate dinner, used his inhaler twice. She stood, gathering her things. He's excited about your new job. Yeah. Lucas smiled tiredly. Me too. Mrs. Chen left. Lucas locked the door behind her and walked down the hall to Jamie's room. His son was asleep, blanket twisted around his legs, one arm hanging off the bed. Lucas knelt and carefully tucked him back in, brushed hair off his forehead. Jamie stirred. Dad? Yeah, buddy, I'm home. Did you build something cool today? Lucas thought about the whiteboard diagrams, the arguments with engineers, the overwhelming weight of expectations. I'm trying, he said softly. Jamie smiled without opening his eyes. You're the best builder. Lucas felt his throat tighten. He kissed his son's forehead and stood. Get some sleep, he whispered. Jamie was already gone, breathing slow and even. Lucas walked back to the living room, sat on the couch, and stared at nothing. He thought about Gerald's face when Arya reassigned his engineers, about Dr. Marx's cold skepticism, about the deadline, 4 weeks, and everything that could go wrong. He thought about the alternative, going back to rejection emails and empty interviews and watching his son suffer because he couldn't afford medicine. This was better. Terrifying, but better. He pulled out his laptop and opened his notes. 4 weeks. He got back to work. Tests. The next 3 weeks blurred together. Lucas arrived at the office before sunrise and left long after dark. The engineering team worked in rotating shifts, some staying late, some coming in early, everyone pushing to meet the deadline. The protocol took shape slowly, piece by piece, like assembling a machine while it was running. Sarah turned out to be brilliant. She understood distributed systems the way some people understood music, intuitively, without needing to think about it. She rewrote the consensus module in 10 days, streamlined it, made it faster and cleaner than Lucas had dared to hope. Raj stress-tested everything. He threw traffic at the system in waves, trying to break it, finding edge cases Lucas hadn't considered. Every failure led to a fix. Every fix made the system stronger. But not everyone was on board. Gerald avoided Lucas entirely. When they crossed paths in hallways, Gerald looked through him like he wasn't there. Dr. Marks attended weekly check-ins but contributed nothing beyond skeptical questions and reminders about compliance requirements. Richard Cross was worse. He kept pushing for timeline extensions, budget reviews, risk assessments, anything to slow the project down. Lucas ignored them and kept building. On day 18, the system passed its first full-scale test, 25,000 transactions per second. Sustained for 6 hours, 0 failures. The team celebrated with pizza in the break room. Sarah high-fived Raj. Dev cracked jokes about how they'd all be unemployed if it had crashed. Lucas stood in the corner, watching them, feeling something unfamiliar. Pride, maybe. Or just relief that they'd made it this far. On day 22, everything fell apart. Lucas was in his office reviewing deployment plans when Dev burst in, face pale. "We've got a problem." Lucas looked up. "What kind of problem?" Gerald just pushed a code change to production. Bypassed review. Bypass testing. It's live right now. Lucas stood. "What change?" "A patch to the validator timeout protocol. He said it was a critical security fix." "Did he clear it with me?" "No." Lucas grabbed his laptop and ran. The engineering floor was chaos. Alarms blaring, people shouting, monitors flashing red. Sarah was at her desk typing frantically. The system's rejecting blocks. Validators are timing out across the network. "What did Gerald change?" Lucas demanded. "He reduced the timeout threshold from 5 seconds to 2. He said it would improve response time." "That's insane," Lucas said. "The network latency alone can hit 3 seconds under load. Validators can't sync that fast." "I know," Sarah said, "but he pushed it anyway, and now the consensus layer is collapsing." Lucas pulled up the system logs. Thousands of errors, blocks failing validation, transactions stuck in limbo. "Can we roll it back?" Raj asked. "Not without taking the whole system offline," Sarah said. "And if we do that, we lose everything in the queue." Lucas stared at the screen, mind racing. "We don't roll back," he said. "What?" Raj stared at him. "Lucas, the system is dying." "I know, but if we take it offline, Gerald wins. He gets to say we weren't ready, that the new protocol failed." Lucas opened his code editor. "We fix it live." Sarah's eyes widened. "That's insane." "So is what Gerald just did." Lucas started typing. "I'm deploying the adaptive timeout patch I wrote last week. It dynamically adjusts based on network conditions instead of using a fixed threshold." "You never tested it in production," Dev said. "I tested it in Sandbox. It worked." Lucas hit compile. "We don't have a choice." He uploaded the patch. The system hesitated, validators flickering between states. Then the errors stopped. Blocks started validating again. The queue began processing. Slowly, the red indicators turned green. Sarah exhaled. "Oh my God." Lucas collapsed into a chair, hands shaking. Dev clapped him on the back. "You just saved the company." "No," Lucas said quietly. "I just stopped Gerald from destroying it." An hour later, Lucas stood outside Arya's office. He'd been summoned. No explanation, just a message from her assistant. "Miss Voss wants to see you immediately." He knocked. "Come in." Arya sat behind her desk, expression unreadable. Gerald stood near the window, arms crossed. Lucas stepped inside. "You wanted to see me?" "Sit," Arya said. He sat. Arya looked between them. Gerald, explain what happened this afternoon. Gerald straightened. I deployed a critical security patch to address a vulnerability in the validator timeout protocol. It was time-sensitive, so I bypassed the usual review process. And it crashed the system, Lucas said. It exposed a weakness in your protocol, Gerald shot back. If the system can't handle a simple timeout adjustment, it's not ready for production. It couldn't handle your timeout adjustment because you set the threshold below the network's physical latency limits, Lucas said. That's not a weakness. That's bad engineering. Gerald's face flushed. I've been building systems for 20 years. Don't lecture me about engineering. Then stop making mistakes a first-year student would know to avoid. Enough, Arya said sharply. They both went silent. Arya stood and walked to the window. Gerald, you violated our deployment protocols. You pushed untested code to production without authorization. You put the entire platform at risk. I was trying to improve security, Gerald said. No, Arya said. You were trying to sabotage Lucas's project. Gerald's jaw tightened. That's not true, isn't it? Arya turned. You've been hostile since day one, refusing to cooperate, undermining him in meetings. And now this. She gestured at the monitors. You didn't deploy a security patch. You deployed a bomb and hoped it would explode in his face. I have dedicated 20 years to this company, Gerald said, voice rising. I built the infrastructure you're standing on. I trained half the engineers in this building, and you're going to take his side over mine? I'm taking the side of competence, Arya said coldly. Lucas fixed your mistake in under an hour. He saved the platform. What have you done lately besides complain? Gerald stared at her. Are you firing me? I'm reassigning you, Arya said. Effective immediately, you're no longer in charge of platform engineering. You'll move to an advisory role. Lucas takes over full engineering operations. Lucas's stomach dropped. Arya, I don't think... I'm not asking your opinion, Arya said. Gerald created this mess. You cleaned it up. That tells me everything I need to know about who should be running this team. Gerald grabbed his jacket from the chair. You're making a mistake. Then I'll own it, Arya said. But right now, you're the mistake I'm fixing. Gerald walked out without another word. The door slammed. Arya sat back down, exhaling slowly. Lucas stared at her. You didn't have to do that. Yes, Arya said. I did. He was going to keep sabotaging you until something broke that you couldn't fix. She met his eyes. I can't afford that. The company can't afford it. What if I fail? You won't, Arya said. But if you do, at least it'll be because the problem was too hard, not because someone on your own team was working against you. Lucas nodded slowly. Go home, Arya said. Get some sleep. We go live in 6 days. Lucas stood and walked to the door. Lucas? He turned. Arya's expression softened slightly. You did good today. Don't forget that. He nodded and left. Tick. That night, Lucas sat on his apartment floor with Jamie, building a tower out of blocks. Jamie stacked them carefully, tongue poking out in concentration. How high can we go? As high as you want, Lucas said. What if it falls? Then we build it again. Jamie grinned and added another block. Lucas watched him, thinking about deadlines and sabotage and the weight of an entire company resting on code he'd written in the middle of the night. The tower wobbled. Jamie held his breath. It steadied. See, Jamie said. It's strong. Lucas smiled. Yeah, buddy, it is. They kept building. The tower fell at 3 a.m. Not Jamie's block tower. That had toppled hours ago, sending both of them into fits of laughter before bedtime. This was different. Lucas was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when his phone lit up with an alert from the monitoring system. Primary validator cluster down. Secondary quorum activating. He grabbed the phone, squinting at the screen. The tertiary fallback had kicked in, preserving the ledger state. But the system was running in read-only mode. No new transactions, no processing, just survival. Lucas rolled out of bed and pulled on yesterday's clothes. He drove through empty streets to the tower, the city asleep around him. The parking garage was deserted. The elevator hummed in the silence, carrying him up to the 34th floor where the lights were already on. Dev was at his desk, still in the same hoodie from yesterday. How long's it been down? Lucas asked. 23 minutes. I've been trying to bring the primary back online, but something's blocking it. Lucas sat down at his workstation and pulled up the logs. Pages of errors scrolling past. Something had flooded the network with malformed requests, overwhelming the validators until they choked. This wasn't an accident, Lucas said quietly. Dev looked at him. What do you mean? Look at the pattern. The requests are coming from distributed sources, but they're all hitting the same validation endpoints. Someone's targeting the exact nodes we rely on for consensus. You think this is an attack? I think someone wants us to fail right before launch. Lucas started typing. Can you trace the source IPs? Dev pulled up another terminal. Most of them are spoofed, but there's a cluster coming from inside the network. Lucas's stomach tightened. Inside our network? Yeah, Building 3, Server Room 2B. That's the legacy infrastructure. Nobody uses those servers anymore. Somebody's using them now. Lucas stood. I'm going down there. You want me to come with you? No, stay here and monitor the system. If the tertiary fails, we're dead in the water. Lucas took the stairs down 8 floors to the Building 3 connector bridge. The hallway was dark, lit only by emergency exit signs. His footsteps echoed on the tile. Server Room 2B was behind a door marked with faded warnings about authorized personnel. Lucas swiped his badge. The light flashed red. Access denied. He tried again. Same result. He pulled out his phone and called Arya. She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. What's wrong? The system's under attack. The source is coming from Server Room 2B, but my badge won't open it. There was a pause. That room's been locked for 6 months. Gerald had it sealed when we migrated to the new data center. Can you get me in? Give me 5 minutes. She hung up. Lucas waited in the dim hallway, listening to the hum of machinery behind the walls. His phone buzzed. A text from Arya. Override code 7829. Door will unlock for 60 seconds. He punched in the code. The light turned green. Inside, the room was cold and dusty. Old servers lined the walls, most of them powered down. But in the back corner, 3 machines were running, lights blinking, fans whirring. Lucas approached them slowly. Someone had rigged a script to run from these machines, sending thousands of malformed requests to the new system's validator nodes. The code was crude but effective, designed to look like legitimate traffic until it overwhelmed the network. He pulled out his laptop and connected to the nearest server. The script had been running for 47 minutes. It was set to escalate every hour, increasing the flood until the system collapsed completely. Lucas killed the process. The server went quiet. He moved to the next machine and did the same. Then the third. The attack stopped. He checked his phone. Dev had sent a message. Primary validators coming back online. Whatever you did, it worked. Lucas exhaled slowly. Then he noticed something on the floor. A coffee cup. Still warm. Someone had been here recently. He picked it up carefully, turned it over. No label, no markings, just a plain white cup from the break room on the 34th floor. Lucas left the server room and headed back upstairs. By the time he got back, the system was stable again. Dev was leaning back in his chair, arms behind his head. Crisis averted. What'd you find down there? Someone set up a script to flood our validators. It was designed to crash the system right before launch. Dev sat up. Who? I don't know, but they had building access and knew exactly which nodes to target. Inside job. Yeah. Sarah walked in holding a tablet. I traced the login credentials used to access those servers. They belonged to Gerald Tompkins. Lucas looked at her. Are you sure? Positive. He logged in at 11:40 last night and didn't log out until 2:15 this morning, right before the attack started. Lucas felt anger rising in his chest. Where is he now? I don't know, but Arya is going to want to see this. Months. Arya's office at 4 in the morning looked the same as it did at 4 in the afternoon. She sat behind her desk, fully dressed, hair pulled back, eyes sharp despite the hour. Lucas and Sarah stood across from her, presenting the evidence. These are Gerald's credentials, Sarah said, pointing to the logs on her tablet. He accessed the legacy servers and deployed the attack script. The timing matches perfectly. Arya studied the screen. This could be spoofed. It could be, Lucas admitted, but combined with everything else, The sabotage, the unauthorized deployment, the hostility, it fits the pattern. Patterns aren't proof. Then let me talk to him, Lucas said. Arya looked at him. That's not a good idea. Why? Because he'll lie? He's been lying since day one. Because you're angry, Arya said calmly. And angry people make mistakes. Lucas clenched his jaw. What do you want me to do? Ignore this? I want you to let me handle it. Arya stood. Gerald's been with this company for 20 years. If I accuse him without concrete proof, it'll tear the engineering team apart. Half of them still respect him. They'll see it as a power play. It's not a power play. It's the truth. Maybe. Arya walked to the window. But truth without evidence is just an opinion, and opinions don't hold up in court. Sarah cleared her throat. What if we set a trap? They both looked at her. Gerald thinks he got away with it, Sarah continued. The system recovered, no permanent damage. He probably assumes we'll chalk it up to a random attack and move on. So? Lucas asked. So we feed him another opportunity. We announce that we're running a final stress test tomorrow night before launch. We make it sound critical. High stakes. If he tries to sabotage it, we catch him in the act. Arya considered this. That's risky. If he succeeds, we lose the launch. Not if we're ready for him, Sarah said. We can isolate the test environment, monitor every access point. The second he tries something, we've got him. Lucas nodded slowly. It could work. Arya looked between them. And if it doesn't? Then we launch anyway, Lucas said. But at least we'll know what we're dealing with. Arya was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Do it, but keep the circle small. Only people you trust. Maltz. The announcement went out at 9 a.m. A company-wide email from Arya. Final stress test scheduled for 8 p.m. tonight. All hands on deck. This is our last chance to validate the system before launch. Lucas watched from his office as people reacted. Engineers gathering in huddles, managers adjusting schedules, everyone treating it like the critical milestone it was supposed to be. Gerald walked past Lucas's office without looking in. Lucas's phone buzzed. A text from Dev. He took the bait. Just requested access to the test environment. Lucas smiled grimly. The trap was simple. They'd set up a dummy test environment, identical to the real one but completely isolated. Any changes made there wouldn't affect production. But to someone trying to sabotage it, it would look legitimate. Sarah had configured the monitoring to track every keystroke, every command, every file access. If Gerald tried anything, they'd see it in real time. At 7:30 p.m., the engineering team gathered in the main conference room. Lucas stood at the front, laptop connected to the projector. Tonight's test is straightforward, he said. We're going to simulate launch day traffic. 50,000 transactions per second sustained for 2 hours. If the system holds, we're ready. If it breaks, we fix it and try again. People nodded, notebooks out, laptops open. Gerald sat in the back, arms crossed, expression neutral. Lucas started the test. The system hummed to life, transactions flowing, validators cycling, everything running smoothly. For the first 30 minutes, nothing happened. Then Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and looked at Lucas. He nodded slightly. Gerald had logged into the test environment from his office. He was accessing the validator configuration files. Lucas kept his expression neutral. Traffic's looking good. No bottlenecks. Latency's under 50 milliseconds. People murmured approval. On Sarah's screen, Gerald was making changes. Subtle ones. Adjusting timeout thresholds. Modifying quorum requirements. The kind of changes that wouldn't break the system immediately, but would cause it to fail under sustained load. Lucas let him work for 5 minutes. Then he turned to the team. We're going to push the load higher. 75,000 TPS. Let's see what happens. He increased the traffic. The system handled it, but Gerald's changes were starting to show. Validators taking slightly longer to sync. Consensus rounds experiencing micro delays. Nothing catastrophic yet, but the foundation was cracking. Gerald was watching the monitors, waiting for the collapse. Lucas let the test run for another 10 minutes. Then he stopped it. Interesting, he said. We're seeing some degradation. Sarah, can you pull up the configuration logs? Sarah projected them onto the screen. There, visible to everyone, were Gerald's changes. time-stamped, traced to his credentials. The room went silent. Gerald stood. "That's not your log in," Lucas said. "Your changes, made 40 minutes ago while the test was running. Someone must have stolen my credentials." "Really?" Arya walked into the room. Nobody had seen her enter. "Because security footage shows you in your office at the exact time these changes were made, alone. Door closed." Gerald's face went pale. "You tried to sabotage this project from the beginning," Arya said. "The unauthorized deployment, the attack on the validators, and now this." She held up a tablet showing the security footage. "I gave you a chance to step back gracefully. You chose sabotage instead." "I built this company," Gerald said, voice shaking. "I spent 20 years making it what it is, and you replaced me with someone who learned to code on a laptop held together with tape." "You're right," Arya said. "You built a lot, but you also refused to adapt. You let ego get in the way of progress. And when someone came along who could solve the problem you couldn't, you tried to destroy them instead of learning from them." Gerald looked around the room. Nobody met his eyes. "Security is waiting outside," Arya said. "You have 10 minutes to clear your desk." Gerald stared at her, then at Lucas. His expression was a mix of rage and something else. Humiliation, maybe. He walked out without another word. The room stayed silent for a long time. Finally, Arya turned to Lucas. "Run the test again, this time with the correct configuration." Geese. They ran it 3 more times that night. Each time, the system held. 75,000 TPS, 100,000. Even at 125,000, well beyond anything they'd see in production, the system stayed stable. By midnight, the engineering team was celebrating. Lucas sat in his office, staring at the monitor, feeling nothing. Sarah knocked on the doorframe. "You should be happy. We did it." "I know." "Then why do you look like someone died?" Lucas leaned back. "Because someone just lost 20 years of their life. Yeah, he tried to sabotage us, but he also built a lot of what we're standing on, and now he's gone." Sarah sat down. "He made his choice." "I know, but it still feels wrong." "You're too soft for this business," Sarah said, but she was smiling slightly. Lucas laughed despite himself. "Probably." His phone buzzed. A text from Arya. "My office, Arya was standing by the window when he arrived. "Sit," she said. He sat. She turned to face him. "We launch in 4 days. The board's approved the timeline. Press release goes out tomorrow morning. Are you ready?" "I don't know," Lucas said honestly. "We've tested it as much as we can. But until it's live with real users and real money on the line, we won't know for sure." "That's not what I asked." Arya leaned against her desk. "I asked if you're ready, not the system. You." Lucas looked at her. "Why does it matter?" "Because if this works, you're going to become the face of this company's turnaround. Interviews, conferences, industry panels, everyone's going to want to know who you are and how you did it. I don't want that. Tough. It comes with the territory." Arya crossed her arms. "But if you're not ready to handle it, tell me now. I can put someone else in front of the cameras." Lucas thought about it. About Gerald's face when he left. About the engineers who'd worked with him for years and now had to choose sides. "I'm not doing this for fame," Lucas said. "I'm doing it because my son needs stability. Because I need to know I can provide for him without wondering if we'll have a place to sleep next month." "I know," Arya said. "That's why I hired you. You're not here for ego. You're here because you have something to prove. To yourself, not to anyone else." She walked around the desk and sat down. "But once this launches, it's not just about you anymore. It's about everyone who bet on you, everyone who trusted you. If you fail, you're not the only one who falls." "I know," Lucas said quietly. "Good." Arya opened her laptop. "Now get out of here. Go home. Spend time with your son. Because once we launch, you're not going to see much of him for a while." Lucas stood. "Lucas?" He turned. "You did good tonight," Arya said. "Don't let Gerald's bitterness make you forget that." He nodded and left. Jamie was awake when Lucas got home. It was past 1 in the morning, but his son was sitting on the couch in his pajamas, eyes drooping, trying to stay awake. "Hey," Lucas said softly. "What are you doing up?" "Waiting for you," Jamie yawned. "Mrs. Chen said you had something important at work." Lucas sat down beside him. "I did, but it's done now." "Did you win?" Lucas smiled. "Something like that." Jamie leaned against him. "I knew you would." "How?" "Because you always figure it out." Jamie yawned again. "Even when things are hard." Lucas felt his throat tighten. He put his arm around his son and pulled him close. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you to bed." He carried Jamie down the hall, 6 years old but still light enough to lift, and tucked him in. His son was asleep before Lucas even left the room. Lucas stood in the doorway, watching him breathe. 4 days until launch. 4 days until everything he'd built either worked or collapsed. He thought about Gerald, about the bitterness in his eyes, about the choice between adapting and destroying. Lucas didn't want to become that, didn't want success to turn him into someone who couldn't handle being replaced. But right now, standing in his son's doorway, watching the rise and fall of small shoulders under a blanket, he wasn't thinking about the future. He was thinking about the fact that they had heat and food and medicine. And that was enough. August. The next morning, the press release went out. Lucas saw it on his phone while making breakfast. Voss Technologies announces groundbreaking protocol update. New distributed ledger system promises unprecedented speed and security. His name was in the second paragraph. Led by newly appointed Chief Protocol Engineer Lucas Reed. Chief Protocol Engineer. He hadn't even known that was his title. His phone started buzzing immediately. Emails, LinkedIn messages, reporters requesting interviews, industry analysts wanting comments. He ignored all of it and took Jamie to school. "Everyone's talking about you," Jamie said from the back seat. "What do you mean?" "Mrs. Chen showed me the article. She said you're famous now." Lucas glanced in the rearview mirror. "I'm not famous. I just did my job." "That's what famous people always say," Jamie said wisely. Lucas laughed. "Where'd you hear that?" "TV." They pulled up to the school. Jamie grabbed his backpack and hopped out. "Dad?" Lucas looked at him. "I'm proud of you," Jamie said. Then he ran toward the building before Lucas could respond. Lucas sat there for a moment, engine idling, feeling something warm settle in his chest. Then he drove to work. To work. The office was different that morning. People nodded at him in the hallways, said good morning, asked how he was doing. A few even stopped to congratulate him on the press release. It felt surreal. 3 weeks ago, he'd been sitting in a waiting room with a wrinkled shirt and a borrowed tie, hoping for a chance. Now people were treating him like he mattered. He didn't know how to feel about it. Dev met him at his office. "You see the board yet?" "What board?" "The message board. Internal forums. Everyone's talking about the launch." Lucas pulled it up on his laptop. Hundreds of comments. Some supportive, some skeptical, some openly hostile. This guy came out of nowhere and we're supposed to trust him with the entire platform? Give him a chance. The tests looked solid. Gerald was right. Arya's playing favorites. Lucas closed the browser. People are entitled to their opinions. "You're not bothered?" "I'm terrified," Lucas admitted. "But being bothered won't change anything. We either launch successfully or we don't." Dev grinned. "That's the most engineer answer I've ever heard." Sarah appeared in the doorway. "Lucas, we've got a problem." His stomach dropped. "What now?" "One of the validator nodes is showing anomalous behavior. It's not failing, but it's running hot. Way hotter than it should be." Lucas stood. "Show me." They went to the monitoring station. Sarah pulled up the thermal readings. Node 47 was running at 83 degrees Celsius. Normal was around 50. "When did this start?" Lucas asked. 2 hours ago, right after we pushed the final configuration update. Lucas checked the logs. The node was processing transactions normally. No errors, no slowdowns, just heat. "Could be a cooling issue," Dev suggested. "Or it could be malware," Sarah said. "Gerald had access to these nodes. What if he left something behind?" Lucas thought about it. "Shut it down. Pull the drive and scan it offline. If it's part of the validator quorum, Shutting it down will reduce our redundancy, Sarah warned. I know, but if it's compromised, leaving it online is worse. Sarah made the call. The node went offline. Lucas watched the system redistribute the load. The other validators picked up the slack without issue. We need that drive scanned in the next hour, Lucas said. If there's something on it, I want to know before launch. The scan took 90 minutes. Lucas paced his office the entire time, unable to focus on anything else. Finally, Sarah called him down to the lab. She had the drive connected to an isolated machine. You're going to want to see this. On the screen was a hidden partition. Inside it, a script, dormant but scheduled to activate. What does it do? Lucas asked. It corrupts the validator's memory state, Sarah said. Not immediately. It waits until the system's under high load, then introduces bit errors into the consensus data. The validator starts approving invalid blocks, and the whole ledger becomes unreliable. When was it supposed to activate? Sarah checked the timestamp. Launch day, 2 hours after we go live. Lucas felt ice in his veins. Gerald. Had to be. This was planted 3 days ago, right before he got fired. Can we check the other nodes? Already doing it. Sarah pulled up another screen. So far, this is the only one, but I'm scanning all 74 validators just to be sure. Lucas leaned against the desk. If we hadn't caught this, we did, Sarah said firmly. That's what matters. But Lucas couldn't shake the thought. They'd been 2 hours away from disaster, 2 hours from launching a system that would have failed publicly, spectacularly, with the entire industry watching. Gerald had planned this, planted a time bomb and walked away, knowing it would detonate when Lucas couldn't stop it. Except they'd caught it. Barely. Lucas pulled out his phone and called Aria. Check. Aria's response was immediate. Forward me everything. I'm contacting our legal team. What are you going to do? Lucas asked. File charges, corporate sabotage, attempted destruction of company property, whatever sticks. Her voice was cold. He tried to destroy us. I'm not letting that slide. Will it delay the launch? No, we launch on schedule, but Gerald's going to regret ever thinking he could get away with this. She hung up. Lucas stood in the lab staring at the screen. 3 days until launch. 3 days to make sure there were no more surprises. He got back to work. That night, Lucas didn't go home until after midnight. He'd personally reviewed every line of code in the validator protocol, checked every node, run simulations until his eyes blurred. Everything looked clean, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something. When he finally got home, Jamie was asleep, and Mrs. Chen was watching a late-night talk show. Rough day? She asked. Long day, Lucas said. You look exhausted. I am. She stood, gathering her things. Jamie asked about you at dinner, wanted to know if you were okay. What did you tell him? That you were working hard to build something important. She smiled. He said that's what heroes do. Lucas felt his chest tighten. I'm not a hero. Tell that to your son, Mrs. Chen said gently. She left. Lucas walked to Jamie's room and stood in the doorway, watching his son sleep. 3 days. 3 days to prove he wasn't just lucky, that he could actually do this. 3 days to make sure his son's faith in him wasn't misplaced. He closed the door quietly and went to his own room. But he didn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible failure scenario in his mind. And when the sun came up, he was still awake. Lucas was at his desk by 6 a.m., coffee already cold, when the first email arrived. It was from a reporter at Tech World magazine. Subject line, interview request. The man who saved Voss Technologies. He deleted it without reading past the first line. 2 minutes later, another one. Then another. By 6:30, his inbox had 47 requests. Podcasts, news outlets, industry blogs. Everyone wanted to know who he was, where he came from, how he'd done it. Lucas turned off his notifications and opened the monitoring dashboard. 2 days until launch. The system was running perfectly. All 74 validator nodes clean, no anomalies, no attacks, traffic simulations pushing 150,000 TPS without breaking a sweat. But perfect made him nervous. Sarah knocked on his door frame holding a tablet. You see the news? I'm trying not to. Financial Times ran a piece. They're calling you the dark horse of distributed systems. She smirked. Also says you're, quote, reshaping the future of decentralized infrastructure. Lucas rubbed his eyes. I hate that. Why? It's good press. Because it's not true. I didn't reshape anything. I just fixed a broken system. That's not what the industry thinks. Sarah sat down. You're a good story, Lucas. Unknown engineer, single dad, builds a revolutionary protocol on a 5-year-old laptop. People eat that up. I don't care what people eat up. I care about whether this thing actually works when it goes live. Sarah's expression softened. It's going to work. You don't know that. No, she admitted. But I know we've done everything we can. At some point, you have to trust the work. Lucas looked at her. Do you? Trust the work? Yeah. I've been coding for 12 years. This is the cleanest architecture I've ever seen. She paused. Do I trust that nothing will go wrong? No, something always goes wrong, but we'll handle it. Lucas nodded slowly. Get some sleep tonight, Sarah said. You look like death. I'll sleep after launch. That's what you said yesterday. She left. Lucas turned back to his screen and started running through the pre-launch checklist for the 5th time. Teshit. At noon, Arya called an all-hands meeting. The entire engineering team crammed into the main conference room, standing room only. Lucas found a spot near the back, trying to stay invisible. Arya stood at the front, calm and composed. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., we go live. The new protocol launches globally. Every transaction on our platform will run through the system Lucas and his team built. People glanced at Lucas. He kept his eyes on Arya. I want to be clear about what's at stake, Arya continued. If this works, we become the industry standard. Competitors will spend years trying to catch up. If it fails, we lose clients, investors, and credibility. There's no middle ground. The room was silent. But I'm not worried, Arya said, because I've seen what this team can do. I've watched you work 80-hour weeks. I've seen you solve problems that everyone said were impossible. And I've seen Lucas turn a hand-drawn diagram into something real. She looked directly at him. Tomorrow, we prove that taking risks pays off, that betting on people over pedigree works, that a single dad with a broken laptop can beat a room full of PhDs. Lucas felt his face flush. Everyone was staring now. So get some rest tonight, Arya said. Tomorrow, we make history. People applauded. Lucas slipped out the back before anyone could corner him. He was halfway to his office when Richard Cross stepped into his path. Reed, got a minute? Lucas stopped. What do you need? Cross glanced around, then lowered his voice. I wanted to apologize. Lucas blinked. What? For the interview, for dismissing you. I was wrong. Okay? I mean it, Cross said. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I thought I knew talent when I saw it. But I looked at you and saw someone who didn't fit the mold. I didn't bother looking deeper. Lucas didn't know what to say. You proved me wrong, Cross continued, and I respect that. I just wanted you to know. He held out his hand. Lucas shook it. Thanks. Cross nodded and walked away. Lucas stood there for a moment, processing. Then Dev appeared beside him. Did Richard Cross just apologize to you? I think so. Hell must have frozen over. Lucas laughed despite himself. That afternoon, he took a break and called Jamie's school. The receptionist put him through to the nurse's office. Mr. Reed, is everything okay? Yeah, I just wanted to check on Jamie, make sure he's doing all right. He's fine. Used his inhaler once this morning, but no issues. He's in class right now. Can you tell him I called? Of course. Lucas hung up and leaned back in his chair. Tomorrow, everything changed. Win or lose, his life would never be the same. He thought about the apartment, the eviction notice that was now just a bad memory, the empty fridge that was now stocked, the inhaler that Jamie didn't have to ration anymore. Whatever happened tomorrow, they'd already won. But it didn't feel like enough. Because if the system failed, all of this, the job, the stability, the hope, could disappear just as fast as it had appeared. Lucas pushed the thought away and got back to work. Bombed. At 6 p.m., Arya stopped by his office. Go home, she said. I'm almost done with... I don't care. Go home. Spend time with your son. Clear your head. Lucas looked at her. What if I miss something? Then we'll deal with it tomorrow, but sitting here obsessing won't help. She leaned against the doorframe. You know what the difference is between good engineers and great ones? What? Good engineers keep working until they can't see straight. Great engineers know when to step back and trust their work. She smiled slightly. You've been great. Don't ruin it by burning out 12 hours before launch. Lucas saved his files and shut down his laptop. Thank you, he said. For what? For taking a chance on me. Arya shook her head. I didn't take a chance. I made a smart hire. There's a difference. She left. Lucas packed up and headed home. Jamie was building another tower when Lucas walked in. This one was taller than before, blocks stacked carefully, tongue poking out in concentration just like always. Dad? Jamie grinned. You're home early. Yeah, I wanted to hang out with you. For real? For real. Jamie's face lit up. Can we order Chinese food? Lucas smiled. Sure, some. They ordered too much food and ate sitting on the living room floor, the tower standing watch in the corner. Jamie talked about school, about a game he wanted to play, about a drawing he'd made in art class. Lucas listened, really listened, not thinking about validators or protocols or launch timelines. Just his son, just this moment. After dinner, they played a card game Jamie barely understood but insisted on winning anyway. Lucas let him, mostly because Jamie's victory dance was worth losing for. At 8:30, Jamie yawned. Do you have to work tomorrow? Yeah, it's a big day. Bigger than today. Lucas thought about it. Different. Are you scared? A little. Jamie considered this. That's okay. Mom used to say being scared just means you care about something. Lucas felt his throat tighten. She was right. She was right about a lot of things, Jamie said quietly. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jamie hugged him. You're going to do great tomorrow. I know it. Lucas held his son close, breathing in the smell of kid shampoo and Chinese food. Thanks, buddy. He tucked Jamie into bed, read him 2 chapters of a book they'd started last week, and waited until his son's breathing evened out. Then he went to his own room, set an alarm for 5 a.m., and forced himself to lie down. Sleep didn't come easy, but sometime after midnight, exhaustion won out. Launch day started with rain. Lucas woke to the sound of it hammering the windows, gray light filtering through the blinds. He checked his phone. 4:53 a.m. 7 minutes before his alarm, he got up anyway. Mrs. Chen arrived at 6:30 to watch Jamie. Lucas was already dressed, laptop bag packed, coffee brewing. Big day, she said. Yeah. You look nervous. I am, she smiled. That means you care. You'll do fine. Lucas wished he had her confidence. He kissed Jamie's forehead, still asleep, blanket pulled up to his chin, and headed out into the rain. The drive to the office felt longer than usual. Every red light, every slow car, every moment dragging. Lucas gripped the steering wheel and focused on breathing. By the time he parked, the rain had turned into a downpour. He ran for the building entrance, dodging puddles, and made it inside soaked. The lobby was crowded. Engineers, executives, people Lucas didn't recognize, all heading up to the 34th floor. He took the stairs to avoid the elevator wait. His office was exactly as he'd left it. Monitors dark, desk clear. The calm before everything. Lucas powered up his workstation and pulled up the monitoring dashboard. System status. Green across the board. 8:17 a.m. 43 minutes until launch. Cool. The engineering floor was chaos. People everywhere, setting up monitoring stations, running final checks. Dev was at his desk coordinating with the infrastructure team. Sarah was reviewing the deployment checklist for the 10th time. Raj had 3 monitors going, traffic simulations running on loop. Lucas walked through it all, feeling strangely detached. This was it. Months of work coming down to a single moment. Arya found him near the monitoring station. Ready? No. She smiled slightly. Good. If you were ready, I'd be worried. What if something breaks? Then we fix it. That's what we do. She touched his shoulder briefly. You've done everything right, Lucas. Trust it. The clock hit 8:30. Arya walked to the center of the floor and raised her voice. Listen up, we're 30 minutes out. I want all teams on standby, monitoring active, incident response ready. If anything looks wrong, you call it out immediately. No hesitation. Understood? A chorus of affirmations. Lucas sat down at his workstation. Sarah took the seat next to him. Dev pulled up a chair on the other side. Here we go, Dev muttered. The clock ticked forward. 8:40, 8:50, 8:55. Lucas's hands were shaking. He clasped them together to stop it. 9 a.m. Arya gave the signal. Launch! The deployment script executed. New protocol live. Traffic routing through the updated system. Validators activating across the network. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then transactions started flowing. 100 per second. 1,000. 5,000. The monitors lit up with data. Green indicators everywhere. Latency under 40 milliseconds. Consensus stable. No errors. 10,000 TPS. 15,000. 20,000. The system held. People started murmuring, checking readings, verifying numbers. Latency's still good, Sarah said quietly. Quorum's cycling perfectly, Dev added. 25,000 TPS. Lucas watched the validators rotate seamlessly. The fallback quorums on standby, ready but not needed. Everything working exactly as designed. 30,000 TPS. Someone in the back started clapping, then someone else. Within seconds, the entire floor erupted in applause and cheers. Sarah grabbed Lucas's shoulder. You did it! Lucas stared at the screen, unable to process it. It was working, actually working. Arya appeared beside him, eyes on the monitors. Status? Stable, Lucas said, voice hoarse. Everything stable. She nodded. Good. Keep it that way. Trozik. The first hour was smooth. Traffic climbed steadily as clients started using the new system. Transactions processing faster than before. Latency averaging 38 milliseconds. Error rate 0.01%. Lucas monitored every metric, waiting for something to break. But nothing did. By hour 2, they were handling 45,000 TPS. The old system would have been screaming. The new one barely registered strain. Industry analysts started tweeting. Voss Technologies' new protocol performing beyond expectations. Could be a game changer. Lucas didn't read them. He kept his eyes on the data. Hour 3, 50,000 TPS. Hour 4, 60,000. Sarah looked at him. You know it's working, right? I know. Then why do you look terrified? Because this is when things usually break. But they didn't. Hour 5, 65,000. TPS. A major client pushed a massive transaction batch through the system. Lucas watched it process in real time. Validators cycling, consensus rounds completing, every block validated cleanly. The batch finished in under 90 seconds. Dev let out a breath. That would have taken 20 minutes on the old system. I know, Lucas said. Hour 6, 70,000 TPS. Arya called a team huddle. 6 hours in, no failures, no rollbacks. We're exceeding every benchmark. She looked at Lucas. You want to say anything? Lucas stood slowly. The entire engineering team was watching. Keep monitoring, he said. We're not done until we're done. Arya smiled. You heard him. Stay sharp. Test us. The first real problem came at hour 8. A validator node in the European cluster started reporting elevated latency. Not critical, just higher than baseline. Lucas pulled up the logs. The node was processing normally, but network conditions in that region were degrading. A fiber cut somewhere in Frankfurt was rerouting traffic through slower paths. Secondary quorum can handle it, Sarah said. I know, but I want to see how the primary adjusts. They watched the validator adapt. It detected the latency increase and automatically reduced its processing load, redistributing transactions to nearby nodes with better network conditions. Smooth, automatic, exactly as designed. The latency spike leveled out. Crisis averted without human intervention. Lucas exhaled. That's what I'm talking about, Dev said, grinning. The system's smarter than we are. By hour 12, the tech media was calling it a revolution. Voss Technologies redefines distributed consensus. New protocol handles record-breaking traffic without breaking a sweat. industry insiders. This changes everything. Lucas's phone was blowing up with interview requests. He ignored all of them. Arya stopped by his workstation. You should take a break, get some food. I'm fine. You've been staring at that screen for 12 hours straight. I'll eat when we're stable. We are stable, Arya said. Lucas, look at the data. We're running at 78,000 TPS with 0 incidents. The system works. You can breathe. Lucas looked at her. What if something breaks when I'm not watching? Then the team handles it. That's why they're here. She pulled up a chair. You built something incredible, but you can't monitor it 24/7 for the rest of your life. At some point, you have to let it run. Lucas knew she was right, but letting go felt impossible. Just 30 minutes, Arya said. Go outside. Get some air. Clear your head. Lucas hesitated. Then he stood. 30 minutes. Ding. The rain had stopped. Lucas walked out of the building into cool evening air. The city was alive around him. People heading home from work, cars honking, the distant sound of construction. He bought a sandwich from a cart and sat on a bench, watching the world move. His phone buzzed. A text from Jamie. Mrs. Chen says you did good today. Did you win? Lucas smiled and typed back. Yeah, buddy, we won. 3 dots appeared. Then, I knew you would. Lucas stared at the message, feeling something loosen in his chest. They'd won. The system was live. It was working. The company was safe. He took a bite of the sandwich and let himself sit there, just existing, for the first time in weeks. When he got back upstairs 28 minutes later, the system was still running perfectly. Hour 16. 82,000 TPS. A new company record. Hour 20. 87,000 TPS. Validator cycling smoothly. Latency holding steady at 41 milliseconds. Lucas finally allowed himself to believe it. This was real. They'd actually done it. Sarah caught his eye from across the room and gave him a thumbs up. Dev was asleep at his desk, head on his keyboard. Raj was still running simulations, pushing the system harder just to see what would happen. Arya stood near the windows, phone to her ear, probably talking to the board. And Lucas sat at his workstation watching the data flow, feeling something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Certainty. Not about the future, not about what came next, but about this moment, about what they'd built, about the fact that he'd proven, to himself more than anyone, that he could do this. Hour 24. The system had been live for a full day. 90,000 TPS sustained. 0 failures, 0 rollbacks, 0 downtime. Arya called another huddle. 24 hours, she said. We just processed 2.1 billion transactions without a single error. That's a company record. That's an industry record. She looked at Lucas. That's your record. The team applauded. Lucas stood, exhausted and wired at the same time. We still need to monitor for anomalies, he said. For the first week is critical. If there are edge cases we didn't catch. There will be, Arya interrupted, and we'll handle them. But tonight we celebrate. Tomorrow we get back to work. She dismissed the team. People started packing up, heading home, congratulating each other. Lucas packed his laptop slowly, feeling the weight of the day settle on him. Sarah stopped by his desk. You coming to the bar? Everyone's going. I need to get home to Jamie. Fair enough. She smiled. You did good, Lucas. Really good. We all did. Yeah, but this was your vision. Don't forget that. She left. Lucas stood alone in his office, looking at the monitors one last time. Green across the board. He turned off the lights and headed home. Jamie was still awake when Lucas walked in. Mrs. Chen smiled apologetically. He insisted on waiting up. It's okay, Lucas said. Jamie ran to him. Did you really win? Lucas picked him up, getting harder now, his son growing heavier every month. Yeah, we really won. Are they going to fire you now? Lucas laughed. No, why would they fire me? I don't know. That's what happened at your other job. Lucas set him down and knelt to eye level. That was different. This time I'm staying. Promise? Promise. Jamie hugged him tight. Good, because I like it when you're happy. Lucas felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them back. Me too, buddy, he whispered. Me too. He tucked Jamie into bed, read him 3 chapters instead of 2, and stayed until his son fell asleep. Then he went to his own room, lay down fully clothed, and was unconscious within seconds. When he woke the next morning, his phone had 63 missed calls. The missed calls were all from the same number. Lucas stared at his phone screen, still groggy from sleep. He didn't recognize it. He checked the time. 7:20 a.m. Jamie was already awake, sounds of cartoons coming from the living room. He called the number back. A woman answered on the first ring. "Mr. Reed? This is Catherine Marks from Bloomberg Technology. I've been trying to reach you since yesterday afternoon." Lucas rubbed his face. "I'm not doing interviews." "I understand, but we're running a feature on the Voss Technologies launch, and industry experts are calling your protocol the biggest innovation in distributed systems in a decade. Our readers want to know who you are." "I'm nobody," Lucas said. "Just an engineer who did his job." "That's not what your CEO says. She called you the most important hire she's ever made." Lucas sat up. "She said that? In yesterday's press conference, you didn't watch it?" "I was monitoring the system." "Well, she said a lot more than that. Mr. Reed, this is a big story. Single father, no recent experience, walks in off the street and saves a billion-dollar company. People connect with that." Lucas felt uncomfortable. "I don't want to be a story." "Too late," Catherine said. "You already are. The only question is whether you tell it yourself or let other people tell it for you." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "I need an answer by noon. We're going to print tomorrow morning." She hung up. Lucas sat on the edge of his bed, staring at nothing. Jamie appeared in the doorway. "Are you okay, Dad?" "Yeah, buddy, just tired." "Mrs. Chen made pancakes." Lucas smiled. "Then I better get some before they're gone." By the time Lucas got to the office, the news was everywhere. Every tech blog, every industry publication, even mainstream outlets were covering it. The consensus was universal. Voss Technologies had just changed the game, and Lucas's name was in every headline. He walked through the lobby with his head down, hoping to avoid attention. It didn't work. People stared. A few pointed. Someone took a picture. The elevator ride up felt endless. Dev was waiting at his desk when Lucas arrived. "You're famous." "I don't want to be famous." "Should have thought of that before you built something revolutionary." Dev grinned. "Also, Arya wants to see you." Lucas dropped his bag and headed to Arya's office. She was on a call when he arrived, but she waved him in and pointed at a chair. He sat and waited while she finished. "Yes, we're fielding acquisition offers, but we're not interested. The protocol stays proprietary." Pause. "I appreciate the offer, but the answer's still no. Thank you." She hung up and looked at Lucas. "That was the 4th acquisition offer this morning." "For what?" "The company. Your protocol. You, specifically, in some cases." Arya leaned back. "One of them offered $2 billion, just to license the architecture." Lucas blinked. $2 billion? I turned them down. Why? "Because we're worth more than that. And because I'm not selling what we just built." She studied him. "How are you holding up?" "Everyone's staring at me." "Get used to it. You're the face of this company now, whether you like it or not." "I didn't sign up for that." "You did when you walked into that interview." Arya's expression softened slightly. "I know this isn't what you wanted, but you proved something that most engineers never get the chance to prove. You showed that brilliance doesn't come from credentials. It comes from desperation and determination and being willing to work harder than anyone else." Lucas looked down. "I just wanted to keep my kid fed." "I know. That's what makes it real." She pulled up something on her tablet. "I got a call from the mayor's office this morning. They want to give you an award, Innovator of the Year." "No." "I told them you'd say that." Arya smiled. "I accepted on your behalf anyway." Arya began. "Lucas, listen to me. You changed this company's trajectory. You saved jobs. You created value. And yeah, you did it for your son. But hundreds of people still have careers because of you. You don't get to hide from that." Lucas didn't know what to say. "Take the morning off," Arya said. "Go see your son. Spend some time with him, because starting tomorrow things are going to get crazy and you won't have as much time." "What's tomorrow?" Board meeting. They want to discuss your future with the company. She paused. They want to offer you CTO. Lucas stared at her. CTO? Chief Technology Officer. Full executive position, equity, the works. I've been here for a month. And in that month, you did what my previous CTO couldn't do in 6 years. Arya closed her tablet. Think about it, but don't think too long. They're voting Friday. Lucas left her office feeling like the ground was shifting under his feet. He didn't go home. Instead, he drove to Jamie's school and checked him out early, telling the office staff it was a family emergency. Not a lie, really. Everything felt like an emergency now. Jamie came bouncing out of class, confused but excited. Are we going somewhere? Yeah, Lucas said. Anywhere you want. They ended up at the park. Jamie ran straight for the playground, climbing on structures that made Lucas nervous, but that he'd learned to tolerate. Other parents sat on benches, scrolling phones, half watching their kids. Lucas sat and actually watched. His son climbing, laughing, calling out to other kids. Healthy, happy, safe. A year ago, Lucas had been filling out job applications at the same park while Jamie played, trying to figure out how to stretch $17 until the end of the week. Now he was being offered CTO of a billion-dollar company. The whiplash was dizzying. Jamie ran over, out of breath. Dad, did you see me? I went all the way to the top. I saw. That was impressive. Can we get ice cream? Sure. They walked to a shop 2 blocks over. Jamie got chocolate with sprinkles. Lucas got nothing, just watched his son eat. You're being weird, Jamie said through a mouthful of ice cream. How am I being weird? You're quiet. You're never quiet. Lucas smiled, just thinking. About what? About how things change. Jamie considered this. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. Mom used to say change is like ice cream, Jamie said. Sometimes it's the flavor you wanted, and sometimes it's not. But you don't know until you taste it. Lucas felt his throat tighten. She said that? Yeah, when we moved apartments that one time. I was scared, but she said we'd figure it out. Jamie licked his cone. We did figure it out. Lucas reached over and ruffled his son's hair. Yeah, buddy, we did. Eek. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep again. He lay in bed thinking about the CTO position, about what it would mean. More responsibility, more visibility, more pressure, but also more stability, more security. The kind of future where he didn't have to worry about rent or medicine or whether they'd have enough. His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. You see the news about Gerald? Lucas hadn't. He opened his browser. The headline made his stomach drop. Former Voss Technologies executive arrested on corporate sabotage charges. He read the article. Authorities had filed formal charges based on evidence Arya had provided. Gerald was facing up to 10 years. His lawyer was claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that he'd been trying to help the company, not hurt it. Nobody was buying it. Lucas closed the browser and stared at the ceiling. He thought about Gerald's face the day he'd been fired. The bitterness, the anger, the sense of betrayal. Lucas had taken his job, his authority, his legacy. And Gerald had tried to destroy him for it, but somehow Lucas didn't feel vindicated. He just felt sad, because he understood in a way he didn't want to admit what it felt like to lose everything, to watch your life collapse and have no control over it. Gerald had chosen sabotage. Lucas had chosen desperation. Different paths. Same fear. He rolled over and forced himself to close his eyes. The board meeting was Friday at 2 p.m. Lucas wore the same suit he'd worn to the interview, the only one he owned. It still didn't fit quite right, but at least it was clean. Arya met him outside the boardroom. You ready? No? Good answer. She opened the door. Remember, just be yourself. That's what got you here. The boardroom was intimidating. Long table, leather chairs, 12 people in expensive suits, all watching him walk in. Arya took a seat at the head of the table. Lucas sat beside her. A man with silver hair and sharp eyes spoke first. Mr. Reed, I'm Thomas Whitmore, board chair. We've been reviewing your performance over the past month, and I have to say, we're impressed. Thank you, Lucas said. The protocol launch exceeded every expectation. The system's been live for 5 days with zero downtime. Industry response has been overwhelmingly positive. Our stock is up 18%. Whitmore leaned forward. You've proven yourself to be an exceptional asset to this company. Lucas nodded, unsure where this was going. Which is why we'd like to offer you the position of Chief Technology Officer. The room was silent. The salary would be $450,000 annually, Whitmore continued, plus equity worth approximately $2 million at current valuation. Full executive benefits, seat on the leadership team. Lucas felt like he couldn't breathe. You'd have authority over all technical operations, Whitmore said. Engineering, infrastructure, research and development. You'd report directly to Ms. Voss and the board. A woman across the table spoke up. We understand this is a significant step up from your current role, but we believe you're ready for it. Lucas looked at Arya. She was watching him carefully. Can I ask a question? Lucas said. Of course, Whitmore replied. Why me? I've been here a month. There are people on the engineering team with decades more experience. Because experience doesn't always translate to innovation, the woman said. You proved that. You walked in with nothing but an idea and turned it into something transformative. But I'm not... Lucas stopped himself. He'd been about to say he wasn't qualified, that he didn't have the credentials, that he was just a guy who got lucky. But that wasn't true. He'd worked for it. Every late night, every line of code, every moment he'd pushed through exhaustion and fear. He'd earned this. I'll do it, Lucas said. Whitmore smiled. Excellent. We'll draft the paperwork and have it ready by Monday. The meeting continued, discussing strategy and budgets and roadmaps. Lucas half listened, still processing. Chief Technology Officer, $450,000 a year. He thought about the apartment with the broken ventilation, about the eviction notice, about filling out job applications in the park. It didn't feel real, but it was. Arya pulled him aside after the meeting. You okay? She asked. I don't know. It's a lot to take in. Yeah. Lucas looked at her. Why did you push for this? Because you deserve it, and because I need someone in that role who actually cares about building things right, not just building them fast. What if I fail? Then you fail. But I don't think you will. Arya smiled. You've spent 3 years figuring out how to survive impossible situations. Running a tech department is easy compared to that. Lucas laughed despite himself. I wouldn't call it easy. No, but it's manageable, and you won't be doing it alone. She gestured at the building around them. You've got a team. Use them. Lucas nodded slowly. Go home, Arya said. Tell your son. Celebrate. You've earned it. Temch. Jamie was doing homework when Lucas walked in. Mrs. Chen was in the kitchen, making dinner. She looked up when he entered. You're home early again? Yeah. Lucas set his bag down. Can I talk to Jamie for a minute? Of course. Lucas sat down next to his son. Hey, buddy, can you stop for a second? Jamie put down his pencil. Am I in trouble? No, the opposite. Lucas took a breath. I got promoted today. To CTO. That's Chief Technology Officer. Jamie's eyes widened. Is that good? Yeah, it's really good. Does that mean you're the boss? Kind of. I'm in charge of all the technical stuff at the company. Jamie thought about this. Does it pay more money? Lucas laughed. Yeah, a lot more. How much? Enough that we can move to a bigger apartment, one with a yard maybe, and get you that video game system you wanted. Jamie stared at him. Then he threw his arms around Lucas's neck. Really? Really? Can I get a dog too? Lucas smiled. We'll see. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, tears in her eyes. Lucas, that's wonderful. Thank you. For everything. For watching Jamie. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. She waved him off. You did the work. I just kept your son fed. They ordered pizza that night. Lucas let Jamie stay up late. They played video games on the old console, the one that barely worked, and Jamie won every round because Lucas was too distracted to focus. At some point, Lucas realized he was happy. Not relieved, not grateful, just happy. It was a strange feeling, unfamiliar, but he let himself sit with it. The weeks that followed were a blur. Lucas officially took over as CTO. He moved into a new office, bigger, with better windows, his name on a placard outside. He hired 2 deputy CTOs to help manage the workload. He restructured the engineering teams, promoted Sarah to lead architect, gave Raj his own department. The protocol continued to perform flawlessly. They scaled to 150,000 TPS, then 200,000. Competitors started trying to reverse engineer it. None succeeded. Lucas did 3 interviews. He hated all of them, but got through them because Arya insisted it was part of the job. The mayor's office gave him the award. He accepted it with a 2-minute speech that mostly consisted of thanking his team and wanting to get off the stage. Jamie started at a new school. One with better resources, better teachers, a nurse's office that actually had the medicine he needed. They moved to a new apartment, 2 bedrooms, a small yard. Jamie picked out his own furniture for the first time. Lucas bought him the video game system and a dog. The dog was a terrible idea, destructive, loud, constantly underfoot. Jamie loved him immediately. Life settled into a new rhythm. Work was demanding but manageable. Jamie was thriving. The panic that had defined Lucas's life for 3 years faded into something else. Not complacency, just peace. Yet, 3 months after launch, Lucas sat in his office late at night reviewing performance metrics. The system had processed 12 billion transactions without a single failure. Industry analysts were calling it the most reliable distributed ledger in existence. There was a knock on his door. Arya stood there holding 2 coffees. "Thought you could use this," she said, handing him one. "Thanks." Lucas took a sip. "What are you doing here so late?" "Same as you, working." She sat down. "I wanted to talk to you about something." "Okay." "I've been thinking about Gerald," Arya said. Lucas looked at her. "What about him?" "About what happened, why it happened." She stared at her coffee. "He spent 20 years building this company, and when someone better came along, he couldn't handle it. He let his ego destroy him." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want that to happen to you." Arya met his eyes. "You're brilliant, Lucas. But brilliance doesn't last forever. Someday, someone younger and smarter is going to walk through that door with an idea that makes yours look outdated. And when that happens, I need to know you won't do what Gerald did." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "I won't," he said finally. "How do you know?" "Because I remember what it felt like to be that person, to walk into a room full of people who didn't think I belonged and have to prove them wrong." He paused. "If someone does that to me someday, I'll remember, and I'll help them instead of fighting them." Arya smiled. "Good answer." "You think I mean it?" "I think you believe it now. I hope you'll still believe it when it actually happens." She stood to leave, then stopped. "One more thing." "Yeah?" "Thank you for taking the risk, for trusting me when I asked you to come back inside that day." Lucas shook his head. "I should be thanking you." "We can both be grateful," Arya said. "That's allowed." She left. Lucas sat alone in his office, thinking about her words, about Gerald, about ego, about the choice between adapting and destroying. He thought about the man he'd been 3 months ago, desperate, broken, willing to do anything to survive. And the man he was now, secure, respected, building a future instead of just scraping by. The difference wasn't talent, it was opportunity. Someone had given him a chance when no one else would, and he'd taken it. Someday, he'd have the chance to do the same for someone else. He hoped he'd remember what it felt like to need it. But 6 months after launch, Lucas took Jamie to the park, the same park where he'd filled out applications, where he'd counted coins to see if they could afford dinner, where everything had felt impossible. They sat on a bench watching other kids play. "Dad?" Jamie said. "Yeah? Are you happy?" Lucas looked at his son, 6 years old, healthy, smiling, safe. "Yeah, buddy, I'm happy." "Good." Jamie leaned against him. "Me too." They sat there in the afternoon sun, not talking, just existing together. Lucas thought about the folder he'd carried into that interview, the hand-drawn schematics, the crayon spaceship, the desperate hope that had felt like his last chance. It had been his last chance, but it had been enough. Not because he was special, not because he was smarter than everyone else, but because when the door opened, he'd walked through it, and when the work got hard, He'd kept going, and when people doubted him, he'd proven them wrong, not with words, but with results. He thought about Arya running into the rain to find him, about Sarah believing in the architecture, about Dev staying up all night to test it, about the moment the system went live and everything worked. He thought about Gerald sitting somewhere bitter and angry, unable to let go of what he'd lost. And he made a promise to himself. When his time came, when someone better walked through the door, he wouldn't fight them. He'd help them. Because that's what someone had done for him. And it had changed everything. Jamie tugged on his sleeve. "Can we get ice cream again?" Lucas smiled. "Yeah, we can get ice cream." They walked to the shop, hand in hand, the city moving around them. And for the first time in 3 years, Lucas wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Because tomorrow was just another day. Another chance. Another opportunity to build something worth keeping. And he'd learned, finally, that he was capable of that. Not perfect. Not flawless. Just capable. And sometimes that was enough. The world didn't owe him anything, but it had given him a chance anyway. What he did with it, that was up to him. And he chose to keep building. For Jamie. For himself. For the next person who'd walk into a room full of doubt with nothing but a folder and a dream. Because everyone deserved a chance, even when they didn't look like they belonged, especially then. Lucas bought his son ice cream and watched him eat it, chocolate dripping down his chin, smile bright and unguarded. And he thought about how far they'd come, from eviction notices to executive offices, from broken laptops to billion-dollar systems, from last chances to new beginnings. It hadn't been smooth, it hadn't been easy, but it had been real, and real was all he'd ever wanted. Jamie finished his cone and looked up. "What are you thinking about?" Lucas knelt down to his son's level. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am." "Because of your job?" "Because of you." Jamie hugged him, sticky fingers and all. And Lucas held on tight, knowing that whatever came next, success or failure, praise or criticism, growth or decline, this moment mattered more than any of it. This was what he'd been fighting for. Not recognition, not money, not fame. Just this. His son, safe, happy, loved. Everything else was just details. They walked home together as the sun set, the city glowing around them, full of people fighting their own battles, carrying their own folders, hoping for their own chances. And Lucas understood finally what his wife had meant all those years ago. Change was like ice cream. Sometimes it was the flavor you wanted, sometimes it wasn't. But you didn't know until you tasted it, and he'd tasted it, and it was sweet.